The sun was sinking behind the old brick buildings of Ridgewood, painting the streets in streaks of gold and rust. The rumble of engines echoed faintly in the distance. The Iron Hearts Motorcycle Club was on their weekend charity ride, heading home after delivering food to local veterans. Their leader, Mason "Bear" Cole, a towering man with a gray beard and eyes that carried 1,000 miles of road, slowed his Harley when he saw a small figure on the sidewalk ahead. It was a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. His face streaked with tears, one shoe untied, holding something tightly in his tiny hand, a cracked photograph. Mason pulled over, motioning for his crew to stop. The bikes idled behind him, engines growling low like restless beasts. Mason took off his helmet and crouched down. "Hey, little man, you lost." The boy shook his head, voice trembling. "No. He hit my grandma." The street went quiet. Even the engines seemed to fade. Mason frowned. "Who did?" The boy pointed toward a small house at the corner. The paint was peeling, and one of the windows was cracked. "The man who lives there. He said she took his newspaper. But she didn't. She just went to get the mail." The boy's lips quivered. He pushed her down. "She's still on the floor. I ran to get help but nobody stopped." Mason's jaw tightened. The crew exchanged glances. They'd seen violence, seen injustice, but hearing it from a crying child was different. "What's your name, kid?" Mason asked softly. "Eli," the boy whispered. "All right, Eli," Mason said, rising to his full height. "You did the right thing coming out here. You stay with my brother Rocco, okay? We'll go check on your grandma." Eli nodded nervously, clutching Rocco's big gloved hand as the bikers walked toward the house. The man's porch light flickered as Mason knocked on the door. A shadow moved behind the curtain. Then, a voice, harsh and defensive. "Who the hell are you?" "The people you don't want to lie to," Mason said calmly. "You hurt a woman here." "I didn't hurt nobody." Old Bat fell on her own. Mason's eyes narrowed. "So you're saying that little boy's lying?" The man opened the door just a crack. He was thin, middle-aged, with a scruffy beard and yellowed eyes. The smell of alcohol spilled out into the cool evening air. "You bikers think you can just show up and..." He didn't finish, because Mason had already stepped inside. The living room was a mess. Empty bottles, crumpled papers, the TV blaring some old show. And there, on the floor near the coffee table, was an elderly woman clutching her arm. Her breathing was shallow. A bruise was forming on her cheek. "Mom, don't move," Mason said gently, kneeling beside her. "We're here to help." The man backed up. "She slipped, I told you." Rocco came in next, snapping photos with his phone. "Looks like she slipped on your temper, pal. Call an ambulance," Mason ordered. The man tried to grab Mason's shoulder, but before he could, one of the other bikers stepped between them. Diesel, the biggest of the group, his jacket covered in patches and scars. He didn't say a word, just stared the man down. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. Eli rushed in when he saw the lights, running to his grandma's side. She opened her eyes weakly, whispering his name. Mason stepped aside, letting them hold each other. The paramedics took her away, but not before Mason promised Eli, "We'll make sure she's okay." "You got my word." The cops questioned the man briefly but didn't arrest him immediately. They said they'd look into it. The bikers knew what that meant, another case buried under paperwork. Mason's crew rode with the ambulance to the hospital, leaving the man standing alone in his doorway, cursing under his breath. At the hospital, Eli sat by his grandma's bed. She had a fractured wrist and bruises on her ribs. "He's been mean since his wife left," she murmured, tears in her eyes. "But I never thought he'd." Mason put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry about him. You just focus on getting better." Later that night, the Iron Hearts gathered outside the hospital under a flickering streetlight. The air was cool, their engines humming softly as they spoke. "What do you want to do, boss?" Diesel asked. Mason lit a cigarette, staring into the dark. "Cops won't do a damn thing. That man thinks he can hurt people and sleep easy. Let's make sure he doesn't. Rocco smirked. So, pay him a visit. Mason nodded once. Tomorrow morning, early, when dawn broke, the small neighborhood was quiet. The birds were the only sound, until the growl of 12 motorcycles filled the street. The Iron Hearts rolled in like thunder, chrome glinting under the sunrise. They parked right outside the man's door. Curtains moved. Neighbors peeked out. The man stumbled onto his porch, bleary-eyed, holding a coffee mug that trembled in his hand. "What do you people want now?" he barked. Mason stepped off his bike. "To talk," the man sneered. "You think you scare me?" Mason took a slow step forward. "You hit a grandma, in front of her grandson. That doesn't make you tough. That makes you trash. And we don't like trash in our town." The man started shouting, but his voice was drowned out by the engines roaring behind Mason. Every biker revved their throttle in perfect unison, a wall of sound that shook the windows. The man flinched, coffee spilling from his cup. Mason spoke over the noise. "You're gonna pack your things and leave this block today. You come near that family again, and I'll make sure every biker in this city knows your face. You'll never have peace again." The man's lip curled. "You can't threaten me." Mason leaned close, his voice calm but deadly. "That wasn't a threat. That was a promise." The man slammed the door shut, but 10 minutes later, he was seen loading boxes into his car. The bikers watched silently until he drove away. Rocco grinned. "Guess he got the message." Mason didn't smile. "Good. Now, let's check on the kid." When they returned to the hospital, Eli's eyes lit up. "You came back." "Of course, little man," Mason said, handing him a small Iron Hearts patch. "Your family now." Eli hugged him, tears streaming again, but this time, they were happy tears. As Mason walked out of the hospital that day, he felt something shift inside. Maybe they couldn't fix the whole world, but they could fix one street at a time. And sometimes, that was enough. But what Mason didn't know, was that the man they'd chased off wasn't done. He had a brother, and revenge was already on its way. The police handcuffed the brothers and drove them away as dawn painted the sky in gold. Mason stood quietly on the porch, watching the first light fall on the old woman's face. "Mrs. Harris smiled weakly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Mason nodded. "No need for thanks, Mom. You've got family now." Eli ran to him, holding his drawing. "You're my hero, Mr. Mason." Mason knelt down, placing the Iron Hearts patch in Eli's small hand. "No, kid, you're the hero. You were brave enough to speak when others stayed silent. Never lose that." The engines started again, echoing through the quiet street. The Iron Hearts rode off, their jackets gleaming in the sunrise, leaving behind a house now filled with safety and hope. As Mason looked back in his mirror, he smiled faintly. Justice didn't always come from a badge. Sometimes, it came from the road, from hearts made of iron and kindness.